Hello, this is Chaos again, going over a few compositions and why you run compositions, and I'll try to go over based on map specific and give you a few options. That way you can, try them all out during scrims and, think on them as a team. I'm gonna get right into this just because I know y'all have a practice, and I want to be able to for y'all to consume this quickly and understand it very quickly. So, in Overwatch, there are three main compositions, or compositions that can be used as kind of like a baseline. Brawl, dive, and poke. Let me make this a little bigger. Okay, so you have brawl, dive, and poke. And for each of these comps, you can break them down into different subcategories, and there's different ways to play each comp, obviously. And I'm going to go over that as much as I can. But for this, right now, we're not going to worry about poke. Let me do that. We're not even going to worry about it. Oh. Okay. Okay. So we're just going to focus on brawl and dive. And I know that someone in the Discord said that dive was a hard composition for y'all to, get your head around as a team. So I'll go over that more in detail. So it seems that you guys like to play the Rhine, Zar, I think you guys play that. I think that's what I saw. Anyways, this is not what I want you guys to run anymore. So the reason that I don't want you to run this comp anymore is because it's fundamentally flawed. It's not a good composition. Now, any composition is playable to a certain extent. Any comp can be played at any level, at any point in the game. Even all the way up into Overwatch League, any comp is runnable. It's just that the meta heroes and the good heroes make it a lot easier. And the reason you run meta is not because the heroes are specifically overpowered or very good. It's because it counters the heroes that are very good. So the reason you see D.Va is because it's good against Reaper, and the reason you see Reaper is because it's good against Monkey. These things counter each other. And the reason that I'm going into this is because it's not that these heroes are necessarily not strong. It's just that the composition conflicts with each other. So this part of the composition here is poke. Brawl. Oh. And brawl. Okay. So the Rein Zarya is a brawl tank line, the Hanzo Widow is a poke tank line, and the Ana Lucio is brawl. And the reason I say dive is because you could swap out that for a Moira and play 6-man dive, which is a composition that I'll go over, but I don't think you guys should run it necessarily. Let me... Okay. So the reason I went over that is because I pointed out it's very obvious. These two heroes are poke, right? And what poke does is they want to play in open space, very broad, so that you can poke them out. You can do damage sometimes before a fight even starts, and just win off damage. So like Ashe Mercy, Hanzo, Widow, even something kind of like Echo or Pharah. Pharah is a very strong poke character. And so typically you'll see poke compositions run with something such as Orisa, Sigma. Sometimes you'll see the Rhine, depending on the map or what they're playing. But typically the Sigma and the Orisa, not necessarily together, but one of the two, just because it enables you to protect your poke and to also poke with your team. Everyone's working together for the same goal. And then also you'll see Bap or Baptiste and Zenyatta, because they can also do damage, they can also spam, and they enable the other characters, right? Ryan Zarya enables Hanzo Widow, right? But they don't work together very well. So the comp that I want you guys to try running tonight instead of this as your brawl composition default, I want you guys to run, let's see, so Ryan, Monkey, Zar, D.Va, Reaper, slash McCree, Sombra, Moira, Lucio. Okay. Let me just a second. Let me think about this. Yeah, this is how, okay. This is how I want it. Okay. So the reason I have slashes here with Monkey and D.Va is because there's a hybrid comp that I want to go over in a second, but I'm going to go over the Ryan, the Zarya, and the rest of the heroes first. So let me get rid of these. Or these. I'll go over these in a second. Actually, I know what I'll do. Okay. So the Ryan Zarya comp is very easy, and the reason I'm going to play it is it's not necessarily meta right now, but it's easier for lower SR teams to run it because it's just an easier comp to get the people's head around. And people generally know how to play the Ryan Zarya, so I'm going to stick with that in the beginning. Reaper Sombra is a very strong DPS line. Sombra is Sombra, so she's going to be strong, really regardless of how many nerfs she receives, just because of how her abilities work and interact with the other ones in the game. And then Moira Lucio, you're playing the Lucio to speed your Ryan, and then the Moira for the healing. And instead of Ana, I'm playing Moira because Ana gets negated by D.Va, which a lot of teams are playing right now, and I'll go over that in a second. I promise I'll go over as much as I can. So the premise behind this composition is that you want to play in closed space. Let me go to a map and explain this topic really quick. Those of you who have watched my the VOD review videos or have VOD reviewed with me, I've gone over this topic of closed space. Let's see, what map do I want to do it on? I guess I can do it on King's Row. Okay. So, this room right here on King's Row is closed space. And then this right here is open space. So, it's very easy to understand why they're closed in open space. It's because one is in a room and one's out in the open, right? Let me find an example of open space, like out in the open that can be closed space. So right here, let's say you have a Rhine and this is his shield. Actually, let me grab blue. This is closed space as well. This area right here. Let me outline it real quick. This could be considered closed space. And I think, honestly, this corner right here could be considered closed space. Not because of the geometry of the map, but because of how it's played and, well, I guess kind of how the geometry of the map is, plays into it, but more or less how fights are taken here. So, Brawl compositions want to go from, here, let me use a box to represent closed space, and let me use a circle to represent open space. So closed, and then this will be open. Okay, so Brawl compositions want to go from closed space to closed space, and then I'll go over this in a second. Actually, yeah, disregard this right now. Okay, Brawl compositions want to go from closed space to closed space. And the reason this is because their heroes get more value this way. The Rhine is constantly swinging, the Reaper is able to hit shots easier, and the Moira can heal better, and the Lucio can heal better. And you get more value from your speed because they're also in closed space. When you fight in this open space, the Rhine, he's not constantly swinging on somebody. The Reaper, it's a lot harder for him to close distance because he can be poked out. Sombra, it's harder to get hacks off. Moira gets less value from her heals. Lucio doesn't necessarily lose a lot of value, but people aren't as grouped, therefore he loses value on a team-based thing. So, and what I mean by open or closed space to closed space is rotating from closed space to closed space. So a rotation that I like to do and that I'll call a lot, especially during scrims and matches, not necessarily comp, because in comp I'm running around just trying to win the game, but mechanically. But let's say that their team is on this corner here, right? Oh, that's not what I wanted. Yeah, okay, we'll go with this. Their team is holding here. This is the enemy Rhine shield. And actually, let me do this. Okay. So there's an Ash and a Mercy pocket here. I'm going to draw a little circle to represent those two. And then your Rhine is here, or their Rhine is here, holding the corner. Doesn't really matter. They're running a poke composition. They're trying to poke you out. They're running the Ash Mercy. They might be running a Tracer or a Sombra with Rhine, maybe Sigma, and something along those lines, right? And you're running a Brawl composition. You have Rhine, you have Zarya, you have the Moira Lucia and the Reaper Sombra like we discussed earlier. You're running this comp right here. What is a good way to go from point A to point B? Okay. The best way is, okay, there's different schools of thought and there's no perfect way to play the game, but I think here there is a very easy way to go around this poke. So pokes, they want to stay in open space, right? So their sight lines are here. They can see all this. This is where they want to be, right? And to win against poke, you want to close the distance. Let's say you're playing against Pharah Mercy, which is a beast of its own. You want to close space. So instead of going straight into them, playing into their sight line, taking damage constantly, you can go around, right? And take the fight here. And now you're at the advantage, right? Because if the team here has to back up to this corner, that's a rotation they have to make, and someone might get caught off. The Ashe has to back up. She loses positioning. You have positioning because you have a corner to play on. You just have so many advantages from going that way by avoiding this poke. And the reason all this is relative is because it's basically explaining the concept of closed space to closed space. That rotation on the far right is closed space the whole time. And this concept really comes into play when you're playing into other compositions. So let's say you're playing Brawl into poke, like I just said. You don't want to play in open space because the poke that's where they want to play. That's where they win, is open space. And on dive also can play in open space, right? They're gonna go from closed space to open space, or from open space to closed space. They're gonna dive you, and you're gonna die, right? Very simple, but you're probably gonna die. All right, but if you rotate closed space to closed space, they never get an opportunity to dive on your rotation. Then you just gain space for free, and you take a fight where you want it to be taken. And basically, Rhine, Zara, Reaper, Sombra, Moira, Lucio, they do this job very easily, and it makes it very easy to play. And so now that I've gone over the heroes and the close spaced and the Brawl, how to play the Brawl composition, first of all, I want to address the McCree pick, because it'll take just a second, because then I want to go into win conditions. The McCree pick is something that you can run if you're running into a Pharah Mercy, for example. If they're playing a Tracer composition. Let's say you have a player that's more comfortable on McCree, because in this skill bracket, you can really run, like I said, any composition is viable, but if you have a good McCree player, it can really set you apart and really just make it a lot easier for your team and for the player. So if you have a good McCree player, I think McCree is actually very strong right now. So try McCree maybe, but Reaper's the main hero that I want here. I'll address these two picks in a second, because that's a different composition. Well, kind of. So now that I've addressed McCree, I want to go over win conditions. So with this composition, there are a few obvious win conditions, and every good composition has more than one. So, for example, a very obvious one is Nanoblade. You have EMP as a win condition. I'm not just saying for this comp, but like just in general in the game. Nanoblade, EMP, Shatter can be a win condition. Diva Bomb can be a win condition. And so it's important to identify these before you go into a fight and before you go into just making and playing specific heroes. So in this comp, all the ultimates except for Moira, and if you were to play Deadeye and Shatter, I'll go over this one in a second. I'll go over these separately because these aren't necessarily individually by themselves win conditions. Neither is this one either. Okay. So your win conditions here are Blossom, Graviton Surge, and Lucio ult. Because Lucio ult, it's not a win condition necessarily offensively, but defensively. If they grab and they don't follow up and you beat, you have a greater health pool, and you're probably going to win that fight. So that's a win condition. If you grab and they're all sitting in the grab, you're Ryan swinging into it, you're Reaper shooting into it, that's a win condition. If they're hacked, let's say you EMP Blossom can be a win condition because you EMP them, they don't have cooldowns, they can't CC you, they can't really kill you as fast, your Zarya can bubble you, and you can Blossom, right? That's a win condition. EMP, honestly, with any of these abilities, Sombra especially, right here, doesn't have to have EMP to create a win condition, but EMP is a win condition with other ultimates. By itself, it's very hard to be a win condition just because you have to follow up. An EMP by itself, the EMP doesn't do damage. The EMP doesn't spawn teammates to kill everybody. It's only a win condition if you actually follow up. So when you especially when you go into a fight with an EMP, you need to fight plan. You need to know where you're going to go. You need to know what you're going to do once you EMP, and your Sombra needs to be calling a 3-2-1, right? Which I'll go over with the Monkey Diva comp a little more in depth because it's a little more prevalent in that composition. But with the Ryan Zarya, let's say you're holding a corner. Let me get rid of these real quick. Let's go back to King's Row. Let's say you're holding a corner here. This is them, and this is you. And your Sombra goes around, and then EMPs everybody. This is the EMP radius. This is your Sombra. You have to first be in this location, because if your team's standing here and you EMP, you can't follow up. But if your team rotates this way and EMPs, you speed onto them and then you can follow up. That's just a very broad example of what I'm trying to get the point across is that you need to be following up on EMP. I mean, you need to follow up on any ult, but especially EMP. Let me go back to the other page. Okay. So EMP with any composition, and then setting up your Sombra. So your Sombra can set themselves up, right? She can go in the back line and, sit there. But Sombra in this meta, first of all, let me address this because I'm a DPS player. I can address this. Sombra, let me write this out real quick, is a go blue. Wow, there we go. Okay, let me address this. Sombra in this meta, especially with Monkey Diva, is a frontline character. And by frontline, I don't mean standing in front of your Ryan, but you would play it as you were a McCree. You would play a little split from your front line, and you constantly deal damage on their front line. Because in this meta, you don't play Sombra like you play Sombra. You play Sombra like a McCree. You're constantly doing damage, you're constantly building EMP, you're constantly getting hacks off. Now, I mean, obviously, if you have EMP, you don't want to be playing frontline, you're going to be setting up for your EMP, or if you're playing for a hack. So what I meant earlier by Sombra being able to be a win condition by herself is, let's say that you have Rhine Shatter. Well, if your Sombra goes in the back line and hacks their Rhine, or even their Zarya sometimes, you can get that Shatter off. Another way to do this is to play aggressive, break their shield, and then Shatter. You can create win conditions, with nothing, no ultimates, just cooldowns and damage. So let me get rid of this real quick. Let me draw this. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Frontline character play like McCree. So learning how to set up these win conditions is very important for any composition, but specifically this one playing for your Sombra. Moira Lucio, I feel like your job is very straightforward. Coalescence to counter maybe Graviton. You can use Coalescence to counter a Grav to a certain extent. Like let's say you know they only have Grav, or you just killed the Reaper and they use Grav. You can use Coalescence to try your best and counter the Graviton. Another thing you can do as Moira is, let's say they Grav and no one dies. You can Coalescence to then flip the fight in your favor. And then obviously Lucio B, you want to be using it to counter Reaper and Grav. But also, let's say you 100% know, you've been ult tracking, that their Sombra has EMP. You need to be hiding. I know it seems like, well, I'd be 5v6, you know? Well, their Sombra EMPs, and then you come in with B, and then you have a huge advantage because they used EMP. They're following up with their cooldowns. Well, you're just going to live because you have a way more health than they do. So hiding for EMP is very important. And another concept that I had to explain to a team recently, and it made it very clear that people don't really understand, is that you can hide as Lucio to counter an EMP even without beat. So the map it was on specifically was Lijiang Tower. Okay. So what had happened is very obvious that the Sombra was positioned here, their team was positioned here, and they were walking this way through here, right? They were playing right here somewhere. Well, the Sombra is obviously going to EMP and take a fight as soon as possible. That's what they're trying to do with EMP, is go through fights as soon as possible. So they're going to EMP right here, right? And then you're going to die. Because in this situation, their Lucio got hacked and, you know, they can't go anywhere. But let's say you know they have EMP. Well, what you can do is as soon as they EMP, you can call before the fight, hey, when we get EMP'd, back up to like here. And your Lucio can hide and then use speed once you get EMP'd. And you don't necessarily have to hide, but let's say your team's standing here and they get EMP'd. The Lucio can be standing back here, or even up here if the Sombra doesn't, if EMP is like right here somewhere, the Lucio can be hiding up on the high ground here looking for a boop, like right here. It doesn't necessarily have to be hiding, he just has to be out of the fight for a minute. And so that's very important. Make sure your Lucio player is doing that. Let me close this. So hopefully that covers all the win conditions. Obviously Reaper, Grav, win condition, Shatter can be a win condition, EMP. I think I went over all of them. Now I want to go over the Monkey D.Va composition, because it's a mixture of both Brawl. Oh shoot, hold on. 1 second. It's a mixture of both Brawl and Dive. It can be played both ways. So this composition can also, let me get rid of this real quick. This composition can also be played like Dive, because it sounds dumb, but the composition is called 6-man dive, and the Moira and the Lucio dive. You dive as a whole team, but at the same time, it's Brawl because you're diving as a whole team. And yeah, it's a dive, but it's more of just like a really fast-paced Brawl. Let me go over it real quick. So in this comp, hold on, you're no longer attempting to play the Rhine or the Czar. The Reaper is playable. The Reaper is good. At this point, we're talking about Monkey and we're talking about D.Va. Monkey D.Va is a very interesting comp because I don't know if you recall, but for a while the meta was, or that you could play, was Rhine D.Va, and this is kind of played in a similar manner. The D.Va peels for the Monkey, and the Monkey acts as the Rhine, but instead of a shield, he has a bubble, and he's constantly cleaving on 6 people, and the Reaper basically does it. The composition is played the exact same as Rhine Zarya. but you want to be taking engagements faster, and you do more damage, and you negate more damage with the diva, so you can be a lot more aggressive, and that's where the dive aspect comes in. So diving is tough for even really good teams to figure out, just because a lot of people try to do their own thing, and it's someone's job, it doesn't matter who it is, to call a 3-2-1 on dives. Number one. Let me number these out real quick. Shoot. 3. Number 1. Call a 3-2-1 on dives. Number 2, call a target. Number 3, dive for positioning. Okay, I'm gonna go over these now. Number 1, call a 3-2-1 on dives. If a Sombra has EMP, the Sombra is the one calling the 3-2-1, and then she EMPs. If it's just a standard monkey diva, let's say you have a Tracer, Sombra, Moira, Lucio, the monkey or the diva is the one calling dives. It should be done every single time. It should, but I guess I shouldn't have numbered this way, because you're typically doing 3-2-1, like in that order. But here, let me rewrite that. Number 1, dive for position. I think I spelled that right. Call a target. Call a 3-2-1. There we go. This is the order in which it should be done. Dive for positioning, call a target, and then call a 3-2-1. So what I mean by dive for positioning, let me go to Nimbani. This is a good map to explain it, because dive is typically played here. So I guess you could say diving for positioning is kind of like a rotation, and where what you're doing is basically just gaining positioning before a fight starts. It's something that a lot of DPS players do. They gain high ground before a fight starts. Or let's say you're like playing Reddit Lucio and you're setting up for a boot before a fight starts. Just in general, setting yourself up for success. So what a team will do, for example, is diving for positioning is, let's say you're a Monkey Diva. The 2 boxes represent Monkey Diva. You're diving here. There's no one standing here. But if you're standing here, they're not, right? They can't contest this, right? Unless they're peeking this corner. Or they're over here, obviously. But if you dive from here, let me move up real quick. Let's say their Ana is standing here, and they have like an Ashe Mercy right here somewhere. Well, if you dive as a monkey from low ground right here to all the way over here, you're going to be exposed, because it takes time to get here, to get to this position, right? It takes cooldowns to get to this position. It takes HP, resources from your supports. Most of all, low chance that you live. Let me get rid of this. But if instead, before a fight starts, the monkey goes here, right? He's not going to get poked out. He's going to take less damage, take less resources. And then all he has to do is walk to this corner and then jump, right? He uses less resources, like I said. He loses less health, all that stuff. So diving for positioning is very important. So basically, a way that you could apply this very generally is if your target is very far away, you can use cooldowns to get to a position, wait for your cooldowns to get back, because dive cooldowns are very short, like blink, or jump, monkey jump, diva boosters, very short cooldowns. You get to your position, and then you dive, right? And I know this concept it's a lot to talk about, and I'm going over a lot, but I'm trying to get it all done. And then I'll go over, obviously, all of this in detail later when I can. So that's number 1, dive for positioning. Number 2, call a target. Calling targets doesn't necessarily have to be the Ana standing right here. The Ana standing right here. Let's say they have an Ashe Mercy standing right here, or the Ashe Mercy is by themselves over here, and the rest of their team is top right. The target can be anybody. It can even be a Rhine if he's out of position, or a Zarya. Typically, what you'll see in this composition right here with the Monkey Diva, the Reaper, the Sombra, and the Moira, and the Lucio, is that Zarya is an important target because with Reaper, you just hack her, she has no bubbles, and then she just dies if you speed on her. A target can be anybody. It just has to be together, and you have to all be shooting the same thing. And then call a 3-2-1. It's important to call a 3-2-1 on every rotation. Every rotation, your main tank should be like, hey, group on me, or your diva should be like, hey, group on me, and then 3-2-1 go. Every dive should have someone calling it, hey, go to this target, 3-2-1 go. Everything should be together as a unit at one time. What the heck is that noise? Oh, it's raining outside. Okay. I thought somebody was tapping on my door. Everything should be intentional. And that's really it. And that's it for diving, really, as a whole. This is like what you should be doing every single time. This composition, though, it's special because you can do both brawl and dive. So diving for positioning is very important. So like, let's go back to King's Row real quick. You know this rotation that I was talking about where you can go like all the way around or whatever? This is, in the same sense, diving for rotation. Or diving for positioning, or rotating for positioning. Same difference, right? Let's say you dive here, right? Your diva's up here, and your monkey's up here, you're all up here on this high ground, and then you go here, right? You know, you're jumping into choke, or not into choke, you're diving into this window, and then you're waiting for your cooldowns and going around, and then diving. Or you're going over here, using your cooldowns, and then diving, right? I mean, you wouldn't have to use cooldown to get from here to here, but you get what I'm saying. Another example, let me go back to Li Shang. So typically on this map right here and right here, you're going to get spammed out, so you might have to use monkey bubble, you might have to use matrix. That's a time when you can rotate, basically kind of like rotate using cooldowns and then go. Make sure you're always taking this positioning before you go anywhere. A Temple of Anubis is another good example, right? You're not going to go straight from here all the way to here without stopping, unless they're just not holding there. Like, let's say that their team is holding up here. Well, that might be a time where you go from there to there. But if they're holding here, you're not going to go all the way from down here to here in one rotation. You're going to go from here to here, wait for cooldowns, and then go from here to here. You know, make sure you're taking your time, slowing yourself down. Tracer here is another, I just want to go over this real quick. Tracer, another win condition because you have pulse, grav, pulse, even pulse with your diva, like a dive will kill somebody most of the time. Pulse on most people obviously will kill them, but if you like pulse, let's say you pulse their monkey and then everyone focuses the monkey, that can be a win condition. It's just hard for pulse to get a lot of value because of diva, because of Reaper having Wraith, Moira having Wraith, Lucio's hard to hit, Sombra is very hard to hit, obviously. So it's not really a win condition. It's more of like a combo ultimate or something that you use to flip a fight. Let's say you hit a pulse and they're Moira or they're on a mid fight, then something like that. And that's why I like the Reaper a lot more, is because it gives you another win condition. So as a recap, real quick, let me delete this real quick. Hold on. Let me delete this. Oh, whoops. Okay. As a recap, really quick, I want you to run Rein, Zar, Reaper, Sombra, Moira, Lucio. And then Monkey, Diva, Reaper, Tracer, Sombra, Moira, Lucio, and Zar. I didn't go over the Zar in this composition, but you basically play it the same way as Rein Zar. It's just that your monkey's a Rein. And you can still dive for positioning. You can still dive. It's just that the Zarya plays more with the back line rather than the front line, and the Tracer is the one diving with the monkey. So the red dive, and then Brawl. these are the two comps that I want to see you guys run. And this comp right here on the right with the red, is meta. That's a meta composition, and it's meta for a reason because it's really good. And this comp right here, I only suggest it because I think you guys can execute this very well. Now, let's say that's all going to shit, right? You know, the composition isn't working out. You guys are tilted because it's not working and it's hard to run. No one on your team plays Reaper or Sombra for some reason. Like, it's just not, you're just not having a good time. Try this comp. So first of all, I know that you have a good Ana player. So try Ana. I know you guys have a good Widow player. So try Widow. Try the Lucio, the Reinzar, and Sombra. This comp is a little wacky, right? It's gonna be a little hard to play, but you're gonna have to rely on your Widow and your Czar doing a lot of the damage, and playing on win conditions. It's a little tough without Monkey instead of Rein, but I think you guys can, if you guys play your comfort picks, it'll be a lot easier. And instead of Sombra, you can play hold on, whoops, did not mean to do that. I guess I'll set it up again. Rein's are Widow, Widow / Hanzo, Sombra / Tracer, Ana, Lucio. I'm gonna modify this a little bit. If absolutely you guys are just cannot win, you're tilted, you want to try something else, and you want to play your comfort picks, try this composition. Let me actually just the Zen, no Lucio, just that. Try running this comp. That tilts me. God damn it. There we go. Try that comp, and let me know how it works. I'm kind of theory crafting, but let me know how it works, especially for you guys. I know you guys have a good Widow player. I know that you guys have a good Ana player, and you guys like playing Zen. And I think the D.Va pairs really well with that, and so does the Rein, because I know you have a Rein player. Let me know how that goes. And then obviously on your dives, do the 3-2-1 that we talked about. On your Brawl, make sure you're doing rotations. I want to hear those rotations. I'm not going to be there, but I want to hear those rotations. And then I want to hear target calling. Like, when you're playing Brawl, target calling is very important, because if all 6 people are all shooting at the same person, they're going to die. Even through trance, they're going to die. So make sure you're calling those. And that should be it. Make sure there's nothing else that I wanted to go over. Nope, I think that was it. So yeah. Good luck. GG's.